First impressions matter, and in this video I give attention to my first impression of God as I started to focus on getting to know Him in the Bible. If you just open the Bible like you would any other book on the first page and you start to read, He is introduced as the one who creates through speaking things into existence. God creates by speaking. This reality about who God is was almost the very first thing that got my attention as I started to read the Bible at the very beginning, because that is how the Bible introduces God. And this impacts on my life in very significant ways every single day since I first started, and it still does today. That is one of the main reasons why I became such a keen student of the Bible. If it is His word to mankind, it has immense power to create what it says, and I certainly needed that at the time. I still do. Let me give you an example. If you, for instance, read in Exodus 20 what is commonly called the 10 Commandments, it says, "Thou shalt not steal," and a whole range of other things. I realized we miss the point by trying to achieve those 10 commandments. Rather, we need to allow God's word to create in us what it says. Because when God speaks and says, "Thou shalt not," whichever of those 10 commandments it is, it's not a command for us to work hard to achieve and to obey. It describes the true nature of somebody who lives in a relationship with God, and the fact that God says it creates it in me. To this day, I expect to change when I engage with God's Word based on who the Bible introduced Him to be when I started at Genesis 1 and I started to read about God the Creator. I think we miss the point by not realizing the very first attribute that the Bible highlights about who God is the fact that He is a creator. He creates by speaking, and what He says comes to be. Let me give you another example, almost the opposite of what I said about the 10 Commandments. A friend of mine once came back from church and I asked her how the church service was. And she said it was a fantastic church service. There were 7 prophecies. And I said to her, "Oh, wow. What were those 7 prophecies?" And she couldn't recall even a single one of them. And my response to that was, impossible. If God really spoke 7 times, your life will change fundamentally. If He speaks only one word directly to you, you can't escape what it says, no matter what. Just ask Moses when God spoke to him. Just ask who became the Apostle Paul when Jesus spoke to him. Just ask Jonah when he tried to flee away from what God wanted him to prophesy and ended up in the belly of a whale. When God speaks just one word to you, your life is changed forever. This is so exciting, and it turned my whole predicament away from being a predicament, because it no longer is. Whatever God says about me becomes true, and that is who I am. The other surprising thing as you start to read the Bible is it introduces God's Word as a person, especially if you look at the New Testament, John 1, verses 1 to 3, where it says, "In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God." It is not a set of true facts like science is. And very often we come to the Bible and we look for a set of true facts, and to our surprise, we find a person. So my quest in getting to know who God is became far more personal than I anticipated when I started out. So what does this mean? If this is the God who speaks into existence that which does not exist, and when you read Genesis 2, He says He created us in His image, and once again I will delve into what that means later. For now, speaking us into existence is personal, it's relational. But the fact is, I do not need to strive to achieving living in who God created me to be, in His image. It's not a commandment, it's a description. And by speaking it, by saying it, He makes it my true nature, and I just need to live according to that true nature. This is so liberating. Obedience is not hard. It is living in accordance to your true nature. It brings a sense of fulfillment, of peace, and of purpose. Just like the sun will have to work much harder to disobey by not rising tomorrow morning than to obey by rising tomorrow morning, because that is its nature. I still marvel at the fact that whenever I find it possible not to live true to who I really am, to him, he does not punish, but reminds me that I am only able to do that because I'm not allowing him to change me and to transform me into his image in ever-increasing ways as he speaks into my life. This is what Genesis 1 describes, and there it is right there, the one thing that sets Christianity apart. God takes the initiatives. He creates in me what he wants me to be. How does this happen? Well, Paul speaks about it in 2 Corinthians 3 verse 18, saying, as we see him, we are being transformed into his image. Focusing on and living in his presence transforms us into that image in ever-increasing ways. We do not need to strive to please him or else risk punishment. An intimate relationship with God is the only thing that is required. But even as I just entered at the beginning of Genesis 1, I was immediately confronted with moving from a set of facts, an inanimate investigation, being pulled into a relationship. And that changed me forever. It changed how I relate, how I live forever. Yes, the facts got my attention, but knowing God is not believing in a set of facts. It is a relationship. It's not about religion, habits, customs. He drew me into a relationship with him as soon as I started to get real in my interaction with him. The transformative presence of God became the daily experience of my life, the steadfast hope that kept me focused and still does. I am still on this journey, and I'm looking forward to the day I'll see him face to face when this journey is completed. The Creator is still creating in me what he has in mind as I allow his word to have its way in my life. The more I get to know him, the more I change and the more excited I become about what is still to come. The Creator God who calls into being that which does not exist. That is the very first thing that the Bible introduces about God. I'm going to delve into who he is in more depth in the next video. But for now, reflect on this reality. You do not need to strive to obey. You just need to live in his presence and allow him to have his way. And obedience will be far easier than disobedience if you do that.